Nobody expected this move, but Lions fans instantly loved it. A forgotten veteran just quietly returned, and it might be one of the smartest decisions Detroit has made all offseason. Because while everyone's focused on big names, this one signing could completely reshape the Lions' defense in 2026. But this move reveals something much bigger is coming. On paper, this might be one of the deepest secondaries in the entire league. Seriously, just look at the names. You've got Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph anchoring the safety position. Two playmakers, two-tone setters. Then at corner, you bring in DJ Reed, add Roger McCreary, and suddenly this room starts to look loaded. And it doesn't stop there. You've got veterans, young upside players, guys on prove-it deals, and depth pieces that actually stepped up last season. Add back Avonte Maddox, and now you're talking about a unit that can rotate, adjust, and survive injuries, something Detroit desperately needed. Because let's be real, injuries destroyed this group before. So now, the Lions did what contenders do. They built layers, not just starters but insurance, not just talent but flexibility. And that's why some analysts are saying something bold. Detroit might not even need to draft a defensive back early. Think about that. In a league where teams are constantly chasing corners and safeties, the Lions might already have enough. But here where things get complicated. Because depth on paper doesn't always translate to dominance on the field. We've seen teams stack talent before and still fall apart when it matters most. Communication issues, blown coverages, missed assignments, it only takes one weak link. And right now, there are still question marks hiding beneath the surface. Can this group stay healthy for a full season? Can the new additions actually fit the system? And most importantly, can they handle elite quarterbacks in clutch moments? Because having bodies in the room is one thing, but having a secondary that can win you games in January, that's a completely different story. Because one player in this group could quietly decide everything. There's one name in this secondary that could decide everything, and almost nobody is talking about it. DJ Reed. Coming into last season, he was supposed to be the guy. The Lions didn't bring him in to be average, they brought him in to lock down receivers, lead the secondary, and elevate the entire defense. And early on, it actually looked like that was happening. He was sharp, physical, confident. For a stretch, he looked exactly like a true CB1. But then everything changed. The injury hit. And when Reed came back, he didn't look like the same player. Suddenly, quarterbacks started targeting him, over and over again. Routes he used to shut down, now they were getting separation. Plays he used to make, now they were completions going the other way. It wasn't just a small dip, it was noticeable. And in a league where offenses are constantly hunting mismatches, that became a problem fast. Because once teams find a weakness, they don't stop attacking it. Now here's the scary part. The Lions are heading into 2026 still depending on him. Not as a backup, not as a rotation piece, but as a key part of this defense. That means everything comes down to one question. Which version of DJ Reed are they getting? The one from early last season that looked like a shutdown corner? Or the one from the second half that struggled to keep up? Because if it's the second version, all that depth in the secondary suddenly doesn't matter as much. It only takes one vulnerable spot for offenses to exploit. And in a division loaded with aggressive quarterbacks and explosive receivers, that's a risk Detroit can't afford. This isn't just about one player. This is about whether the Lions' entire defensive plan actually works. Because if Reed bounces back, this unit could be dangerous. But if he does, everything starts to unravel. And if that happens, the Lions could be in serious trouble before anyone sees it coming. This is the part nobody wants to talk about, but it's the reason everything fell apart. Injuries. Not just one or two, we're talking about a full-blown collapse of the secondary at the worst possible time. Over the past 2 seasons, the Lions didn't just deal with bad luck, they got hit with wave after wave of key losses. At one point, it felt like every game came with a new name going down. Brian Branch missed time, Kirby Joseph battled injuries, corners were rotating in and out, depth pieces were suddenly forced into starting roles they weren't ready for. And that's when things started to slip. Because in the NFL, chemistry in the secondary isn't optional, it's everything. One miscommunication, one missed assignment, and it turns into a big play. Now imagine that happening with backup players, constant lineup changes, and zero consistency. That's exactly what Detroit dealt with. And it all came crashing down when it mattered most. In the playoffs, against a high-powered offense, the Lions' defense didn't just struggle, they got exposed. Big plays, broken coverages, missed opportunities. The kind of game that leaves fans wondering what could have been if the roster was just a little healthier. And here's the reality that makes this even more concerning. This wasn't a one-time issue. It's been a pattern. Which is exactly why the Lions made the moves they did this offseason. Bringing back reliable pieces like Avonte Maddox wasn't just about talent, it was about survival. They're building a secondary that can withstand chaos. More depth, more flexibility, more options. Because they know it's not about if injuries happen again. It's about when. But even with all that preparation, there's still one problem they haven't solved. Depth can keep you afloat, but it can't always save you. And that's exactly where the Lions' biggest weakness still remains. Here's the uncomfortable truth Lions fans don't want to hear. It doesn't matter how good your secondary looks, if you can't pressure the quarterback, none of it holds up. And right now, that's still Detroit's biggest problem. Because look at the division they're playing in. You've got Caleb Williams, a young QB who can extend plays and create chaos outside the pocket. Then there's Jordan Love, who's already shown he can pick apart defenses when he gets time. And of course, Kyler Murray, one of the most unpredictable off-script playmakers in the league. These aren't quarterbacks you can defend for 4 seconds. You're lucky if you can hold them for 2. And that's where everything starts to break down. Because even the best corners in the league can't cover forever. Routes get extended, receivers improvise, defenders lose leverage. Eventually, someone gets open. That's exactly what happened to the Lions last season. It wasn't just coverage issues, it was time. Quarterbacks had too much of it. And when that happens, your secondary ends up taking the blame, even when it's not entirely their fault. Now here's what makes this even more dangerous. Detroit knows this. They've talked about it, analysts have pointed it out, fans have seen it. Which is why there's growing expectation that the Lions will target an edge rusher early in the draft. Because without a consistent pass rush, this defense has a ceiling. And it's not championship level. You can stack your secondary with talent. You can build depth. You can even fix communication issues. But if elite quarterbacks are standing comfortably in the pocket, none of it matters. And in today's NFL, that's a losing formula. So while everyone's focused on the secondary improvements, the real question is happening up front. Can the Lions finally generate pressure when it matters most? Or are they heading into another season with the same fatal flaw? And the latest draft predictions might have just revealed their answer. Just when it looked like the Lions were locked in on fixing their defense, the latest mock draft flipped the entire narrative. Because instead of going defense early, they went offense. According to projections, Detroit is expected to take offensive tackle Caleb Lamu with their first-round pick. And that's where things get interesting. Because this isn't just about adding protection, it's about preparing for a major shift on the offensive line. There's already talk about moving key pieces around, possibly reshaping the entire structure up front. And if that happens, bringing in a young, versatile tackle like Lamu suddenly makes a lot more sense. But still, passing on defense in the first round, that's a bold move. Now here where they try to balance it out. In the second round, the Lions are projected to take edge rusher Derek Moore. A high-upside pass rusher, explosive, physical, exactly the type of player Detroit needs to address that pressure problem we just talked about. So on the surface, it looks like a solid plan. Tackle first, edge second. But not everyone is convinced. Because some fans and even analysts believe the Lions should go all in on defense immediately. Fix the biggest weakness first, don't wait. And then there's another layer to this. Reports suggest the team has serious interest in Caden Proctor, one of the most dominant tackles coming out of Alabama. If that's true, It means Detroit might be prioritizing the offensive line more than anyone expected. And that raises a bigger question. Are the Lions quietly more concerned about protecting their offense than fixing their defense? Because if they are, this draft strategy starts to look very different. It's not just about talent anymore. It's about philosophy. And depending on how this plays out, it could define their entire 2026 season. But this draft plan might be hiding an even bigger problem behind the scenes. This situation just keeps getting stranger. At first, it looked like a normal off-season move. A veteran offensive lineman moves on, the team goes in a different direction, happens all the time in the NFL. But this has turned into something else entirely. Taylor Decker, a longtime cornerstone of the Lions' offensive line, is suddenly on the outside looking in. And the most shocking part, there's barely been any communication. Reports suggest Decker hasn't even had a real conversation with the front office since everything went down. No closure, no clear explanation, just silence. And then things got even weirder. There are claims, unconfirmed but widely discussed, that there may have been a mix-up with contact information. Some reports suggest the team's GM might have changed his number and Decker may not have even had the right way to reach him. Now think about that for a second. An established veteran, possibly unable to reach his own team. It sounds unreal. And while that detail isn't fully confirmed, it's added fuel to what's already becoming one of the most bizarre off-season storylines. But here, where it gets even more emotional. Decker reportedly had one clear intention this offseason: he wanted to come back. Not chase a payday somewhere else, not jump to a rival. In fact, reports suggest he has zero interest in playing for division rivals like Green Bay or Chicago. For him, this wasn't just business, it was personal. He invested years into Detroit, built relationships, helped shape the culture. And now it ends like this. From the team's perspective, the move might make sense. Age, injuries, cap space, it's part of the game. But from the outside looking in, it feels unfinished. Awkward. And maybe even a little tense. Because situations like this don't just disappear. They linger. And sometimes they come back in ways nobody expects. And this unresolved situation could quietly impact more than just the offensive line. For the past few years, the Detroit Lions have felt different. Not just competitive, but dangerous. With Jared Goff leading the offense and weapons like Jahmyr Gibbs making explosive plays, this team has had moments where they looked like a real Super Bowl threat. At one point, they were that close. And that's what makes this moment so important. Because now the expectations have changed. This isn't a rebuilding team anymore. This is a team that's supposed to win. But here's the problem. The rest of the division didn't stand still. You've got rising quarterbacks, improving rosters, and teams getting more aggressive every offseason. The gap is closing fast, and in some cases, it might already be gone. And then there's Detroit's own inconsistency. One year, they look dominant. The next, things fall apart at the worst possible time. Whether it's injuries, defensive struggles, or missed opportunities, something always seems to hold them back. That's why this upcoming season feels different. It's not just about being good. It's about proving they belong at the top. Because talent alone isn't enough anymore. Yes, they still have a strong core. Yes, the offense can put up points. But the real question is whether this team can put everything together for a full season: offense, defense, health, and execution. Because that's what separates contenders from pretenders. And right now, the Lions are stuck right in between. Close enough to believe, but still far enough to doubt. This season isn't just another step forward. It's a test of their roster, a test of their depth, and most importantly, a test of whether this window is actually real. Because in the NFL, those windows don't stay open forever. And if Detroit doesn't figure it out soon, they might look back at this era as a missed opportunity. Because if they fall short again, the questions won't just get louder, they'll get harder to answer.